Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming out this morning. My name is James Faluzak, F as in Frank, A-L-U-S-Z, C, Z again, A-K. With me this morning is Dan Woodard, W-O-O-D-A-R-D. I am an advocate. I am a survivor of clergy sexual abuse. I am a former priest and a whistleblower before the 40th investigating grand jury in Pennsylvania. Attorney Woodard is with the firm of Phillips and Palicelli in Manhattan and has been representing injured victims for years. And I'm honored to be standing here with him today. Bishop DiMarzio and the Diocese of Brooklyn are evading a full account of priest perpetrators in the Diocese of Brooklyn. In 2004, DiMarzio and the Diocese of Brooklyn self-reported 73 abuser priests as part of the John Jay study that was commissioned by the United States Catholic Conference of Bishops. That was 2004. Today, Bishop DiMarzio and the Diocese of Brooklyn only acknowledge 114 alleged perpetrator priests. The authoritative number today, though, is 142 alleged abuser priests in this diocese. They have been publicly reported by the media and by other legal filings. So there is a difference of 28 abuser priests that have been self-reported by the Diocese of Brooklyn and who have been publicly acknowledged.
This is a number that does not take into account the opening of the Child Victims Act in New York as well as in New Jersey and nationwide. At Phillips and Palicelli, we represent over 150 victims of childhood sexual abuse. We filed cases in both New York City, upstate New York, as well as in New Jersey. What has occurred here is that through our investigation and speaking with these victims who have undergone these heinous acts, have revealed priests that have not come forward or have not been revealed by the church itself. In upstate in New York, in Buffalo, we have revealed 5 priests that have not been revealed by the Diocese of Buffalo or the Roman Catholic Church in general. What happens here, despite the legislature's opening up this availability for victims to seek reform and seek justice through the civil justice system, despite that availability of those victims to come forward and seek justice, the church continues to do the same thing and cover up what they know in a shroud of secrecy and hide behind the truth of what is known. This is not a situation where they're coming forward to allow these victims to heal, but rather continuing to take the same stance that they always have, which is hiding behind archaic doctrine and dogma.
Besides the Diocese of Brooklyn, Bishop DiMarzio is withholding information on Cardinal McCarrick. As a priest and auxiliary bishop protege of the former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, it is legitimate for us to ask, what did Bishop DiMarzio know about allegations against Cardinal McCarrick from the time period of 1996 to 1999 in the Archdiocese of Newark, when Bishop DiMarzio served there under McCarrick as an auxiliary bishop, prior to McCarrick's appointment to the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. As one who was certainly interviewed as part of the pending McCarrick investigation, DiMarzio must provide for the communities he served in New Jersey a status report of that investigation.
The questions we're asking on behalf of our victims and our clients is, why does the church continue to hide the information? This is a situation where they should be, and what our clients want is not only justice, but the ability to heal. By allowing the church to keep this information secret from the victims, litigate these cases. If anything, if they're going to try to impugn the credibility of these clients, impugn the credibility of these people after they suffered for so long, we ask why. Why does that occur? Why won't there just be a period of healing and a period where there is a revelation of who these abusers are, what the church knew when, and that would allow these people to move forward with their lives and begin the healing process, having sustained horrible trauma throughout their lives?
We contend that Bishop DiMarzio is also withholding information that he is aware of from the Diocese of Buffalo. DiMarzio recently concluded a Vatican investigation of the Diocese of Buffalo, where Phillips and Paolicelli and our affiliates have multiple clients. When will Bishop DiMarzio provide us with an accounting of his findings?
This is a situation where unspeakable acts, from speaking to our clients, we hear these stories, and what we're compelled by most is their bravery in now coming forward. And now, after all of these years, with the opening of the Civil Justice Acts, both in New York and New Jersey, the advent of other states that are contemplating passing these acts, including Illinois, passing of it in California, this is going to be a situation where, representing these victims throughout the country at Phillips and Paolicelli, we are going to try to get to the bottom of these investigations and are going to advocate on behalf of our clients and are going to leave no stone unturned in obtaining the truth in order to get them justice.
Bishop Edward Scharfenberger was a priest of the Diocese of Brooklyn, and we are asking now Bishop Scharfenberger of both Albany and Buffalo to share with us information on the internal investigation of Bishop Howard Hubbard, his predecessor in Albany, and also Bishop Richard Malone recently resigned, forced out of the Diocese of Buffalo. Bishop Scharfenberger, this protege of Bishop DiMarzio, is now presiding over this same cover-up. What is the status of Bishop Hubbard in Scharfenberger's present Diocese of Albany? If Scharfenberger and the diocese are indeed conducting an investigation, an internal investigation of Hubbard, when can we expect that public accounting of Hubbard's actions? More germane, more to the point, did Bishop Edward Scharfenberger know about allegations against Bishop Hubbard all of these years that he's now been the Bishop of Albany? Has he sat on these? And has he not shared his knowledge of these allegations against retired Bishop Hubbard? Scharfenberger is now the apostolic administrator of the Diocese of Buffalo. Will he finally give to the good people of the Diocese of Buffalo a full public account of the number, the nature, and the location of clergy sexual abuse in Buffalo? The other day, when Bishop Scharfenberger was named as the temporary administrator in Buffalo, he was caught being duplicitous in his response to different questions by the public and by the media. He tried to suggest that he had a blank slate going into Buffalo. But then he said at the same time that he was familiar with media reports that about clergy sexual abuse and the historical nature of it in Buffalo. Then, when he was pressed further by members of the media in Buffalo, he acknowledged that he had spoken with Bishop Richard Malone in the run-up to his appointment as administrator in Buffalo. But he tried to prevaricate about Bishop Malone. He tried to prevaricate about where and when and how long he and Bishop Malone had spoken about the fact that Malone was being forced out and Scharfenberger was coming forward. I was in Rome a week after these bishops met with the Pope, and we never heard anything from the Holy Father. We never heard anything from any of the Vatican congregations about this matter. Bishop Malone seems to have been given an out, given his chance to have a swan song. He said a mass at St. Paul's outside the walls, the tomb of St. Paul the Apostle. He was granted that, even though he and his fellow bishops knew that he was being forced out. It begs the question, when will the good people of the Diocese of Buffalo see Bishop DiMarzio's final report to the Vatican? And will Bishop Scharfenberger cough up that information that is so needed?
We'll take any questions that you have at this point.
Yes, I have a question. When you say going back at the beginning regarding this testimony, you say the authoritative number is 142. What do you mean by the authoritative number?
What I mean by the authoritative number is that 142 priests of the Diocese of Brooklyn have been revealed by the media or by public court filings. They are publicly known. They have not been publicly revealed by the Diocese of Brooklyn or by Bishop DiMarzio. A difference of 28 that he has not shared with the public. Are these men still in ministry? Are they still walking the street? Do they still have access to children? I think it's an entirely relevant question to the good people of this community.
Why do you think there's been a delay in the bishop's report?
Ultimately, every bishop has to abide by the same playbook. That is canon law, church law, the internal procedures that are imposed upon bishops by Rome. They are bound by confessional secrecy. That any time, let me give you another example. If a married couple gets divorced and they want an annulment, they have to take their case to a tribunal run by the Diocese of Brooklyn. That trial, that internal investigation and tribunal trial, is governed by confessional secrecy. The bishop would face excommunication by the Pope if he were to reveal the substance of that investigation. It is no different with the investigation of priests. Okay? So the priests that have been acknowledged publicly by the diocese, well, it's almost easy for them to cough up that information because it's already public. What about their confessional matters? What about their internal tribunals? What about their internal investigations? Bishop DiMarzio, Bishop Scharfenberger, they are afraid to give up that information because of the potential penalty of being excommunicated from the church that they serve. So they're not going to tell us anything other than the ultimate result of one of these tribunals. They're not going to say whether somebody is guilty or innocent unless they're given permission to do so by the Vatican itself.
And do you think that's going to hold up the Vatican or DiMarzio?
Both. Bishop DiMarzio is the standard bearer for these Vatican internal procedures. I can't give him a pass. I can't forgive him for his secrecy. It's the same. It would be akin to any other, the Catholic Church is a signatory to the United Nations Declaration on Freedom. They have an obligation to uphold the common good, the set of conditions that allow people in this community to thrive and simply to be safe. And they're withholding that. They believe there is a greater standard that's imposed upon them essentially by a foreign power, by the Vatican. And so rather than tell us that there are perpetrators living and serving in our communities, they're going to withhold that under pressure by the Pope.
So this is the report you're talking about for the Buffalo Diocese?
We're talking about, we're here today to talk about 3 reports. The report of Cardinal McCarrick. Bishop DiMarzio was a protege of him, was one of his last auxiliary bishops in Newark. It's reasonable to expect that he was interviewed as part of that Vatican investigation. The result of that investigation has been kicked down the road indefinitely.
And is this the DA's investigation?
No. I wish it was a district attorney's investigation. This is the church's investigation of Cardinal McCarrick. This is the church's investigation of retired Bishop Howard Hubbard in Albany by Bishop Scharfenberger. This is the report of Bishop Richard Malone, the recently forced out Bishop of Buffalo, conducted by Bishop DiMarzio. We wish that it was public, civil, or criminal authorities conducting these investigations. No, it's the church and it's these men. It would be akin to a corporation, a public corporation investigating itself and never telling us why somebody, or the circumstances, or the timing or the location of abuse that might have happened at any American corporation.
So it seems like there's a number of intertwined conflicts of interest. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, we would say emphatically that the church has a huge conflict of interest, not just between its own law and its internal investigations and the expectations of our community. They're not abiding by the gospel. They're not following the command of Christ to protect the most vulnerable members of our community.
And it's a situation where they are preaching or talking about healing. Those of you out there who are Catholic, devout Catholics, you are hearing the words in the homilies every week from the priests talking about the healing, moving forward in healing of the putting the scandals of the past behind us. How can that occur when they're not coming forth with the information that they have that will allow the community to understand the full breadth and impact of the number of priests out there who have engaged in this conduct? And do we know if any of these are still actually practicing priests? Are they still having access to children? We don't have that information. You cannot preach healing on one hand and not give us the information to allow us to heal on the other.
And furthermore, many of these bishops will make grand statements to the public. We're sorry for what happened. We apologize for our missteps. We apologize for our mistakes. What are they apologizing for when they don't give us a full account? Bishop Scharfenberger, one of the first statements that he made in the Diocese of Buffalo last week was to say, if a husband were to cheat on his wife, it's one thing to ask for forgiveness, but you have to see a change in behavior. It's an apt analogy, in fact, because these men are apologizing for something. They're unwilling to talk about it. It's like saying, honey, I'm sorry for what I did. I'm sorry. Here's the kicker, my favorite response from these bishops. I'm sorry if there was anything lacking in my response. We cannot forgive. You can't expect victims to forgive the church when the church doesn't give a full accounting in the first place.
Just if you could explain that DiMarzio McCarrick, when he's saying DiMarzio was not forthcoming to the church, not forthcoming to the public. What are you saying about that?
That's a good question. Bishop DiMarzio was the second to the last auxiliary bishop of Cardinal McCarrick in Newark. Okay, this was before Bishop DiMarzio was appointed Bishop of Camden, New Jersey. He served, I want to make sure I get it right, from 1996 to 1999, he served as the auxiliary bishop to Cardinal McCarrick in Newark, New Jersey. What did he know? I mean, we've heard again and again with the McCarrick tragedy that multiple bishops in the state of New Jersey knew for years, it has been alleged that they knew for years about, they had heard not just rumors, but they had heard about specific cases. All we're asking is for Bishop DiMarzio to tell us, sir, with all due respect to your office, what did you know? What did you know about Cardinal McCarrick? It's a reasonable question.
Do you think he's been forthcoming with the church, or you just don't know?
We do not know if he's been forthcoming with the church. The church has conducted its own internal investigation. It's been reported on. We're all waiting with real anticipation to find out the result of that report. The problem is, and I think one of the reasons, this is just my speculation, why the church is kicking this down the road as it is and saying, well, it's a matter of we got to translate the report into Italian and whatnot, is that it's going to end up implicating bishops.
So wait, which report now?
The McCarrick report.
But he didn't do that report.
He certainly was interviewed as part of that.
Was not, in the Buffalo report,
He was serving shoulder to shoulder with Cardinal McCarrick while those allegations were known to multiple bishops.
Right, no, but I'm saying in the Buffalo report, he was in charge of investigating.
Buffalo is a separate investigation. There are 3 investigations here that DiMarzio, two for certain that he's sitting on. One is the McCarrick investigation, and the second is the Bishop Richard Malone investigation that he himself conducted over a span of just a couple of weeks in November in Buffalo. The third investigation that we need to see the result of is from this priest of the Diocese of Brooklyn, who has become the Bishop of Albany, Bishop Scharfenberger, who is now the administrator in Buffalo. So Bishop Scharfenberger and Bishop DiMarzio, Scharfenberger was a protege of DiMarzio. You can almost trace this. McCarrick ordained DiMarzio a bishop. DiMarzio ordained Scharfenberger a bishop. The 2 of them are sitting on 3 investigations of their fellow bishops that we need to hear the results of.
What gives you your credibility, and more so, why are you here sharing all this information with
Why
us?
I'm here personally is that as a priest for 18 years in the Diocese of Erie, I brought allegations to my bishops that they ignored. Not just what happened to me, not just the abuse that I experienced from Father Daniel Martin as a teenager when I was in high school, but when I was a priest, I brought allegations of abuse of vulnerable adults at Christ the King Seminary in Buffalo, which serves multiple dioceses on the East Coast historically, and also an active case of child endangerment. When I told my bishop that I had been abused by Father Martin 15 times, he said, "Oh, thank God." He said, "Jim, you were lucky it was only 15 times." That's what happened to me. As a serving priest, I brought allegations that had nothing to do with me that I was aware of. I was seeing my brother priests being reassigned to ministry who had been sent away for treatment for being abusers and then being reinstated. My credibility is that I swore to these matters under oath before the grand jury in Pennsylvania.
You don't think that rehabilitation was enough, so to speak, and then they were released back to the churches?
Are you saying, well, the question I would ask you just in return would be, do you think a child abuser can be reinstated to serving in a community with children?
In any context.
Let alone a church.
Let alone a church. These are people who are convicted, essentially sex abusers. What do you have to do in the regular public when you're a convicted sex abuser? You register. You can't be within feet of these children that are traversing here before us right now if you're a convicted sex abuser. Yet the church deem these people appropriate to turn back into parishes? How is that acceptable?
The Pennsylvania grand jury showed that my abuser was actually in restricted ministry. He was a known abuser when he abused me.
A repeat offender.
A repeat offender.
So what needs to change?
I think that more than anything, what we're here to do today is to say it's the church's internal procedures. It's that playbook. Josh Shapiro, the Attorney General of Pennsylvania, referred to it as a playbook in the grand jury report. It's called canon law. It's the law of the church that's on the books right now. Pope Francis has talked about zero tolerance. I was at the Papal Summit in February in Rome. In fact, that's where I met Bishop Scharfenberger and spoke with him for the first time. He wasn't even there. We don't know why he was there. He wasn't there for the abuse summit. But they on the heels of that, Pope Francis talked about the need for zero tolerance, not just of priests who abuse, but of bishops who cover it up. We're here alleging that these bishops are covering this up in the present moment.
And continue to cover it up, despite their sprinkling out of names of those revealed in public filings, their own internal investigations, and what they know has yet to be revealed. And if we really are getting to a situation where this is going to move forward, where there's going to be zero tolerance, and there's going to be healing for these victims, of which we represent hundreds, how can that occur without a revelation of what has transpired in the past, a full accounting?
These are very good questions. Any others? Those who have arrived later, any questions, comments, anything you need for clarification?
What do you expect the next step for the Vatican to be?
The next step for the Vatican is simply to be true to its public promises in the last year, to be transparent. Give us these reports. Tell us what you knew about Cardinal McCarrick. Tell us what you knew about Bishop Richard Malone of Buffalo. Tell us what you knew about Bishop Howard Hubbard of Albany. Okay, that's just to hold them accountable for their public statements that they've made since February. As a former priest, as a Christian, be true to your gospel. Christ preferred the company of the poor and the vulnerable, and made it a commandment to advocate and to protect the most vulnerable members of our community. That's what I would ask of them. Be true to your own gospel.
What kind of support do you get or you don't get from your fellow priests or people within the church, given the strong division that since last February we saw in the Vatican growing, actually?
It's still a huge source of sadness for me that I gave testimony before the PA grand jury about 127 either perpetrators or folks that could have testified to what they knew about those perpetrators, and it's a source of enormous sadness for me that my fellow priests, my brother priests, none of them from the Diocese of Erie speak to me. The guys that I was in seminary with at Christ the King Seminary in Buffalo, some of them will speak to me, not publicly. We have to meet somewhere in secret. They don't want to be seen with me. I was part of a fraternity with them. I was part of a band of fellow priests that we had such a high sense of mission, of proclaiming the gospel, and bringing the Word of God to, to a world that needs it badly, and none of them will talk to me today, essentially. I'm not over that. I don't know how to get over that. But thank you.
Just one last one from me. Do you feel that it was appropriate that Bishop Scharfenberger be appointed to cover Buffalo at this point, just last week?
I understand the optics of it. He's a nice guy. He's got a great smile. He's got a great personality. Of all of the bishops that I know of, he's, to me, has been one of the most approachable. My family, my father's family, is from Schenectady, is from the Albany area. I've been able to speak with him at length on 2 different occasions, and I found him to be very warm and personable. And I think it's that that demeanor that made him attractive to Rome in being appointed to this investigatory and to this this temporary role of administrator in Buffalo. I get the optics of it, and I get why they chose him. But if he's the best of the best, and that's what a lot of folks are saying right now back home in Buffalo, that Bishop Scharfenberger is the best of the best. Oh my God. He still can't come clean. And he's even acknowledged publicly before the media and before the public in Buffalo the last week that he is constrained by these same obligations to secrecy that I've been talking about.
I want to just hit back to the disparity between the number of names the church has released
Okay.
and the number that went out publicly. Is there a process by which those other names could still be released by the
You'd have to
church?
ask the Diocese of Brooklyn what their procedures are, what their what their criteria is for naming priests. I mean, I've looked at it for years now, and I frankly don't understand it.
Well, I guess the question is possible that it's innocent.
That it's innocent?
Yeah.
28 omissions is not
Not every allegation is legit.
I'll tell you one thing. Sexual abuse in our society is an epidemic. You are likely, if you are a woman, one in 4 women before they are 18, 1 in 6 boys before they are 18 are likely to be sexually assaulted. You are more likely in the United States to be sexually assaulted before your 18th birthday than you are to die of cancer or heart disease. Lifetime. That's the epidemiology of the issue. I don't think that there is anything innocent about leaving off of the... I have verified these numbers multiple times. I have sought the advice of agencies that keep track of this information. There is nothing innocent about withholding 28 priests from the body of what this diocese and what this bishop has released.
But who substantiates that number?
Well, I can
They have
simply...
their list, and then you're saying there's
Well,
another
you
list,
could
so
go
how do
you could go to the
substantiate?
website. It's an international database called bishopaccountability.org.
And who runs that?
It's a group of lay people, most of them practicing Catholics, frankly, that maintain that database.
Isn't there a process that the diocese, each diocese goes through to substantiate?
I'm sure there's a process that Walmart follows for dealing with their allegations. I'm sure there's a process that IBM deals with their allegations. The point is not what is the procedure of the Diocese of Brooklyn. The point is they are omitting 28 names from public revelation.
And it's not so much so that we don't know what their investigatory process is because it's shrouded in secrecy. You have a number, 100 and what is it?
142.
142. 114 of which they've acknowledged.
Right.
So this is not a situation where they're saying there's zero.
No, but what I'm saying is the difference is, how do you know that somebody makes an allegation if that's...
My point in talking about, I'm sorry, I
Because
didn't.
it's investigations that are done by attorneys from these accusers that have come forward since these Child Victims Acts have been opened up. It's doing that investigation in order getting corroboration, not only from what our clients are telling us and these horrible stories of abuse that we're hearing on a daily basis, from these phone calls both in New York and New Jersey and throughout the country of these people telling the tale of now coming forward and saying for the first time, this is what happened to me.
This is the
And
Bishop
then
accountability list. I'm just trying to get.
Absolutely. I mean,
That's
go
part
to
of it.
bishopaccountability.org for sure. But my point would be, at the end of the day, that we're talking about a set of internal investigations. We don't know. You could look at canon law and see what their rules are for due process and things like that. But it's essentially the HR handbook of the Diocese of Brooklyn.
So 142 is victim allegations or priests?
no, the 142 is the actual number
Of priests.
Of priests.
I want you to be clear on that.
You're right. That's the actual number of priests, 114 of which have been acknowledged by the diocese.
Right.
Right.
And Brooklyn's been better than some dioceses, frankly, in saying, well, this is where this priest was assigned. Okay, they'll say that, but a lot of dioceses won't say that. But they're still leaving out all these other, and it's under the auspices of canon law. It's under the auspices of their human resources handbook. It's under the auspices of canon law that, to the point of shedding their blood, a cardinal would never release that kind of information. A bishop could be excommunicated if they were to share that information with the public without permission.
And when you have a situation like we've encountered, where it's an unnamed, acknowledged priest, right? The diocese has not acknowledged him, but yet you have 4 or 5 or 3 separate clients who call you on different days complaining about the same allegations of the same priest. In and of itself, this corroboration, in and of itself. So they may not have put him on a list or revealed him, but now when you have multiple people over multiple years, all from the same parish complaining about the same priest, that's pretty compelling proof.
And I want to get back to your question because I didn't answer it effectively enough, I don't think. I was in my late 30s, early 40s before I ever talked to my bishop about what happened to me. The average age for a victim coming forward is 52. How many of us would ever want to talk publicly about our first sexual experience if it was a good one? How many of us would ever stand here in front of a bank of microphones and cameras and a bunch of strangers and want to talk about that, that material? These victims, their first sexual experience was with a priest. And I think that's part of what we need to remember. The courage that it takes to come forward. My point is, in summary to your question is, false allegations are exceptionally rare. Exceptionally rare. Even just in society, that 1 in 6, that 1 in 4 statistic I shared with you, of that body, one in 100 might be a false allegation. That's not even talking about priesthood, because who wants to go up against this in making that claim?
Thank you.
Anything else? Great questions, really great, and thank you for coming out. We're certainly available in the next few minutes if you have anything else you want to talk about on the side.
Thank you.
Thank you.